I want you to think for a second about the most mundane, repetitive chore that you absolutely dread doing.
Oh, everyone has one.
Right. Everybody does. Maybe it's, scraping dried oatmeal off a bowl after an incredibly long day.
Yeah, or trying to fold that endless, chaotic mountain of laundry on the bed.
Exactly. Or staring down an inbox that just seems to refill the second you clear it. You know, that specific feeling, right? That nagging, tight-chested sense of, I just need to get this over with.
Yes.
You grip the sponge or you grab your mouse and your mind is already 10 miles down the road. You're panicking about tomorrow's presentation or replaying some awkward conversation from yesterday. You are physically standing at the sink, but mentally you're completely checked out.
It's the default setting for almost all of us right now. We treat the daily maintenance of our lives as a hurdle to jump over.
Right, like an obstacle.
Exactly. It's this annoying penalty fee we feel we have to pay before we can get back to what we consider our real lives. We view those repetitive physical tasks as just dead, empty space.
Which brings us to the focus of today's deep dive. We are looking at a really fascinating source today. It's a philosophical narrative called Sweep the Path.
It's a beautiful text.
It really is. And the mission of our deep dive today is to explore the core philosophy presented in it, which is this idea that these repetitive, seemingly futile chores are actually the most profound mirrors for our own minds.
Yeah, it flips the whole concept of mindfulness on its head.
Exactly. A lot of our listeners are probably very familiar with standard mindfulness. You're sitting quietly, focusing on the breath in a dark room. But what makes this so radical is that it takes that practice out of the quiet meditation room and forces you to confront it while doing physical, frustrating labor. Okay, let's unpack this.
The setup for this is beautifully grounded. The narrative centers on a student who is given a very specific manual instruction by a quiet teacher. And the instruction is just to go outside and sweep a dirt path.
Sweeping a dirt path.
Yes. Now, if you pause and really think about that, it sounds completely absurd. It's a dirt path. Outdoors.
Right, it's dirt. You're literally sweeping dirt off of dirt.
Exactly the paradox. The wind is obviously going to blow again. The dust is going to return.
Yeah.
The leaves will inevitably fall the moment the broom is put away. And there's no grand lecture accompanying this assignment. There's no spiritual context provided at all. It is just the student, the broom, and the path.
And naturally, the student does what I think any of us would do in that situation. They rush.
Of course.
They describe attacking this chore with a massive amount of internal impatience. Their head is just filled with noise. They're worrying if they're holding the broom right. They're calculating how long this is going to take, questioning if it's some sort of trick test.
Because that's how we're conditioned to work.
Yeah. So they start sweeping incredibly fast, almost mechanically.
Yeah.
They treat it like a puzzle to outsmart. The logic is, if I just sweep fast enough and make this dirt look tidy enough, I'll get a passing grade and I can move on to the actual lesson.
What's fascinating here is that the pointlessness of the chore is actually the core of the lesson. When a task has no permanent, tangible outcome.
Like a dirt path outside.
Right. When it is absolutely guaranteed to be undone by the wind, it strips away our modern illusion of progress. It acts as a mirror. It reflects all of our internal resistance, our mental clutter, and our deep discomfort, which is being in our bodies.
It's exposing something.
It exposes how split we are. We are constantly trying to speed up and escape the present moment to reach some imagined finish line. But the realization here is that there is no finish line. The goal isn't a clean path. The goal is the physical act of doing.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
Because I can hear you, the listener, thinking the exact same thing I am. A lot of people are incredibly busy. They have real, hard deadlines.
Yes, bills to pay, kids to feed.
Exactly. If I treat my digital inbox or my actual job like a dirt path and just leisurely observe the emails piling up, I'm going to get fired. My life falls apart. So how does this philosophy actually survive contact with reality?
That is the crucial distinction to make. Sweeping the path isn't about moving in slow motion or abandoning your responsibilities.
Okay.
It's about the internal state while you are executing those responsibilities. You can sweep a path efficiently without your mind being in a state of frantic, resentful panic.
So it's internal speed versus external speed.
Exactly. The rushing the narrative talks about isn't just physical speed, it's the mental act of skipping over the present moment. When you rush just to check a box, you skip the physical sensation of the broom, the sound of the gravel, the rhythm of your own breathing.
You're just totally checked out.
And by skipping all of that, you are effectively skipping over your own life. You miss the clarity that only exists in the motion itself.
That makes a lot of sense. You can be fast without being frantic. The narrative actually points out that when the student rushes just to get it over with, the task doesn't even feel done.
No, it just feels exhausting.
Right. It just feels endless. And then there's this major turning point. After days of hurried, resentful sweeping, they finally stop fighting the chore. They slow their internal pace down. And when they do that, their perception of the path entirely changes.
It's a huge shift.
At first, they just saw this big, messy blur, just a monolith of quote-unquote dirt. But with deliberate attention, that blur starts to reveal its individual layers.
The shift in perception is dramatic. Once the frantic mental noise dies down, the path is no longer just a mass of earth-colored sameness. It becomes highly specific.
Yeah, the details they notice are super visceral. They start seeing small stones buried in the dirt, some with really sharp edges. They find twigs, shards of broken glass, rusted metal, and even a dangerous old nail hidden in the dust.
Things that were there the whole time.
Exactly. They realized this debris wasn't just making the path look messy, it was actually hazardous. It could wound someone. And they had been aggressively sweeping right over it, completely blind to it, simply because they weren't fully looking.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is a brilliant metaphor for our internal emotional state. Think about the language we use in modern life when we are stressed out. We say, I am so overwhelmed.
Yeah, all the time.
We treat our mental state exactly like that monolithic, messy dirt path. It's just one giant, insurmountable blur of bad.
Just a wall of stress.
Right. But when we slow down and observe our own minds without judgment, when we sweep our internal path, we can start to name the individual pieces of that overwhelm.
It's the difference between waking up and saying, I just feel awful today, versus actually looking at the debris.
Yes.
You might notice, oh, this specific thought right here is anxiety about my mortgage. Or this sharp feeling is actually an isolated stone of shame from a weird conversation I had with my boss yesterday.
Precisely.
Or maybe it's just the scattered twigs of tomorrow's endless to-do list. You stop seeing a monolith and you start seeing the pieces.
Identifying those hidden stones is half the battle for our mental health. When these sharp little anxieties and buried guilts are left unexamined, they trip us up.
They do.
They constantly wear us down in the background. We carry around interactions that haven't been digested or expectations from other people that we've mistaken for our own thoughts. The narrative drops a very powerful assertion here. It says, you cannot clear what you cannot see. If your mind is constantly rushing 10 steps ahead, you are just bulldozing over your own internal landscape.
You cannot clear what you cannot see. That is one of those lines that really sticks with you. So the practice isn't to fix your entire life in a panic. It is to learn your own path, piece by piece.
Exactly.
And the primary tool for learning that path is the broom itself. Here's where it gets really interesting in the text. The dynamic between the student and the broom completely changes.
It does.
The student starts to realize the broom isn't just a dumb object to be mastered. It's actually acting as a teacher.
Which requires a massive surrender of the human ego. Our culture intensely glorifies force and dominance. We want to wield our tools, whether that's a broom, a software program, or a management strategy to bend the world to our will.
We really do celebrate aggressive productivity.
We do, but the act of sweeping teaches the exact opposite. When the student tried to force the broom, it dug into the dirt and tangled. Aggression didn't make the gravel move any faster. It just created more mess.
The broom physically resisted the impatience.
Yes.
That is so relatable. It reminds me of trying to violently yank a fitted sheet out of the dryer when I'm running late.
Oh, that's the perfect example.
Right. The harder and angrier I pull, the more it tangles up with the other clothes, and the longer the chore actually takes. The aggression literally slows down the process.
Force creates resistance. But when the student meets the broom with attention and care, the tool moves gracefully. It teaches patience and rhythm. It demonstrates physically that gentleness actually clears far more effectively than brute force.
It completely strips away the idea that you need some enlightened guru on a mountaintop to learn about yourself.
You really don't.
If you are paying attention, you can learn from a broom. You can learn from a stubborn fitted sheet or a garden trowel or a dog that insists on pausing at every single tree on a walk.
Anything can be a teacher if you give it your full, undivided presence.
And giving that full presence unlocks an entirely new layer of awareness in the narrative. It introduces this concept of the invisible leaves,
Yes.
which is arguably the most poignant observation in the entire experience. After weeks of doing this, the student feels pretty confident. They think they know the path perfectly.
They think they've mastered it.
Right. They know how to spot the rusted nails and the sharp stones. But then an even deeper stillness settles in,
Mm.
and it reveals a subtle layer of the world they had been completely oblivious to.
The invisible leaves.
The invisible leaves. These are the soft flecks of dust that you can only see when the sunlight hits them at the exact right angle.
Beautiful.
Thin pine needles that were perfectly camouflaged because they were the exact same brown as the dirt. A crushed petal, half buried beneath the gravel.
Mm.
They've been sweeping loudly and proudly right past these delicate things the whole time.
I'd like to ask you, the listener, what stands out to you when you think about the quiet, subtle things in your own life? We are so conditioned to respond to the loud things, the phone alarms, the urgent emails, the loudest opinions in a room.
The things that demand our attention.
Exactly, they demand it. But the real teachers, the profound moments, are often incredibly soft. They wait right at the edge of our awareness. You miss them not because they are rare, but because they don't shout.
The examples given in the text for these subtle human moments are really beautiful. It's noticing the way a friend subtly exhales when they are finally relieved. It's
Yeah.
catching that microsecond pause before someone says, "I'm fine," when they really aren't. Or even just the brief moment the sunlight hits your arm through the car window and you suddenly feel grounded.
Witnessing the world that clearly and kindly without rushing past it, the narrative essentially describes this level of attention as a form of actual love.
Attention is the purest form of generosity. And as this level of care deepens for the student, the daily chore evolves from a physical action into a profound state of flow.
It's a complete transformation.
So the author mentions a point where the physical labor completely shifts. The student describes feeling like they aren't even doing the sweeping anymore. What exactly is happening there? Is that just muscle memory taking over because they've done it 100 times, or is it something deeper?
It's much deeper than muscle memory. It's the absolute essence of surrender. There comes a day where the broom is moving, the dust is gathering, but the sweeping feels like it is happening through the student rather than by them.
Like they're a conduit.
Exactly. They write that they were no longer separate from the moment. They were the moment. We need to clarify what surrender means in this context because we often equate it with giving up or failing.
Waving the white flag?
Right. But here, surrender means giving in. It is giving in to the current of the present moment. We spend our days striving, pushing, and trying to manipulate our environment. But presence has its own momentum.
When you stop resisting.
When you stop resisting the reality of the moment, you tap into a flow state that carries the work forward naturally.
And when you are operating in that kind of flow, the work you do starts to ripple out in ways you might never fully see.
It always does.
There is a very pivotal scene in the text where this becomes clear. One morning, the student finishes their usual sweep. The dirt path is smooth, open, and totally peaceful. And suddenly, a stranger comes walking by.
The stranger.
The stranger has absolutely no idea that the student just spent an hour painstakingly clearing that path. They don't stop to admire the dirt. They don't offer a thank you. They just walk down it, moving smoothly, lightly, without stumbling over a single hidden stone or rusted nail.
That single moment completely redefines the entire endeavor. Up until that stranger walks by, the sweeping felt like a private, solitary ritual. It was a personal meditation on clearing the mind.
A solo journey.
But seeing another person walk freely down that path shifts the practice into a profound act of invisible service. By clearing the debris, the student didn't just cultivate their own internal silence, they literally made the physical world softer for someone else to move through.
That takes a lot of ego death. No one is giving you a gold star for that. No one is clapping for you.
No.
It makes you think about how we can do this in our modern lives. It's the equivalent of going into a chaotic, shared digital spreadsheet at work and quietly formatting it so the next person isn't stressed out looking at it.
That's a great example.
Or wiping down the kitchen counters at night so when your partner wakes up, the room is just at zero and they can breathe easier.
Exactly.
Or, on a mental level, sweeping your own internal anxieties so you don't project your bad mood onto your kids when they get home. You don't do it for the praise. You do it because the next person deserves to walk freely too.
It's about removing the friction for others.
So what does this all mean? We've found this amazing flow state. We've learned to spot our internal debris. We're doing this quiet, invisible service for the people around us. We've figured it out. We've reached the finish line.
Not quite.
No, because then the narrative hits us with the ultimate reality check. The wind returns.
Always. The wind will always return.
I have to admit, on behalf of anyone listening who likes to actually finish a project, that sounds incredibly frustrating.
It is maddening if you're attached to the outcome.
Right, because no matter how perfectly the student swept that path, sometimes within minutes a breeze would kick up. Dust would scatter right back across the perfectly cleared dirt. New twigs and dead leaves would fall into the exact spot they just swept.
The illusion that you can permanently fix your life or your mind is completely shattered.
Which is the hardest pill to swallow.
It really is. And this raises an important question. Why bother?
Right. What's the point?
Why should we sweep at all? Why should we try to clear our minds or help others if the world is just going to immediately get messy again?
It's so easy to feel a sting of nihilism there, to feel that all human effort is entirely futile.
But the philosophical answer provided here is breathtaking. It tells us that change the mess, the returning wind, is not a flaw in the system. Change is the system.
The path will never stay clear forever. Your inbox will never stay at zero. Your mind will never stay permanently silent.
And it isn't supposed to. We have been heavily conditioned by society to see progress as a straight upward line. We think we're supposed to reach a final, static state of perfection where we never have to struggle again.
We want to be done.
We desperately want to be done. But life is inherently cyclical. The tide goes out and it comes back in. You inhale and you exhale. The path is swept and then it is inevitably swept again.
Is a rhythm.
Yes. The argument here is that repetition is not a failure of progress. Repetition is faith. The physical act of returning to the practice, even when you know the leaves will fall again tomorrow, is exactly what makes the act sacred.
It reminds me of that classic Zen proverb, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop
Yeah.
wood, carry water.
Precisely.
Being present isn't a graduation ceremony. You don't get a diploma that excuses you from ever having to manage your temper or sweep your kitchen again.
No, you just do it with a different quality of attention.
Right. The moment your mind wanders off, you just return to the broom. The moment the path gets cluttered, you begin to clear it. And the key is you do it gently, without heaping shame on yourself that things got messy again.
It leaves us with such a powerful, paradigm-shifting way to view the obstacles in our lives. We almost universally view that returning wind as the adversary.
We really do.
We see the returning emails, the returning laundry, the returning anxious thoughts as these annoying forces constantly undoing our hard work. We want to conquer the wind.
You want a hermetically sealed path where nothing ever touches us.
Precisely. But I want you to really think about what would happen if we actually got what we wanted. If that dirt path stayed perfectly clear, completely sterile and undisturbed forever, it would cease to be a part of nature.
It would be frozen.
It would be a dead museum piece behind glass. The wind returning, the leaves falling, the dust settling that is the undeniable evidence of life happening. The returning mess is not a punishment. It is a necessary gift. It is the continuous, beautiful invitation to interact with the world around you, to touch life with care over and over again. Without the wind, there is no practice. There is no rhythm. The wind returning is what keeps the path, and us, truly alive. It is the infinite invitation to simply begin again.